Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Michelle. Today I'm going to be telling you everything I read in the month of July. We only have 6 books. We're on the up though. 6 is more than 4. Some real basic math, but just so you know, 6 is greater than 4. And I did read 6 books last month. So let's talk about the books. We're just going to go in the order in which I read them. The first book I read was Ali Hazelwood's latest. I have become a hardcore Ali Hazelwood fan. She's one of my favorite romance writers, and I feel like she writes books that are so joyful. I think this book is different though. Not that it isn't joyful. I think there's still joy in this book, but there's much less than in her other books. And she talks about that in the beginning. Like, this is much less of a rom-com and like much more of like a steamy novel, but I would also say like the angst level is like pretty high, and the things that the characters are dealing with are dealt with in a way that is more heavy. Like, the issues that the characters are dealing with both in their past and like also in their presence are much heavier, and like there's a lot more like trauma that these characters are unpacking with each other. That being said, like, still truly such a delight. We are following 2 characters, and I just looked up their names and already forgot them. We are following Rue and Eli. Rue is this young woman who is working at like a biochemical tech startup, and she is working with this woman who has been like her mentor since she was like quite young. And Eli is working at a company that acquires other companies, and their 2 companies kind of like come into contact with each other in a way. I don't know how much is revealed before that, so I won't talk too much about how their companies are working together, but we have this kind of like business element happening in the background that reminded me a little bit of the STEMinist novellas. There's a STEMinist novella that has a really similar premise, although again this one deals with a lot more like trauma from our characters. Rue in particular, so our girl has like a lot of like childhood trauma that she's unpacking. I would definitely look up content warnings for this book because it definitely deals with some heavier subject matters, and it does so in a way that is like pretty confrontational in terms of the subjects themselves. But I really loved Rue and Eli. I like feel like Ali Hazelwood writes really like delightful men, and I felt like Eli was no exception. This is definitely one of Ali's steamier books. It starts as a friends with benefits sort of situation and then evolves from there. So obviously we have a lot more, it's like steam forward, if that makes sense, because it starts in a physical way and then develops into a romantic relationship. I feel like that's not a spoiler because it's a romance book, girly. Like, you knew what was going to happen. The next thing I read was The Prisoner's Throne. This is the follow-up to the Stolen Heir. It's just a duology, so it's like complete. And so I don't want to talk too much about it, but we're following Ren and Oak, the next generation of like cruel prince people. Oak was Jude's little brother, and we are following them on the like second half of their adventure. Yeah. In terms of this book, this duology, the first one was told from Ren's perspective, and this one is told from Oak's perspective. And it did take me a little bit of time to like get on board with that. I love Oak as a character, but I really loved Ren as a character, particularly as a POV character, and I did miss having her POV in the second half, but I think you come around to it. And Oak is such like a delightful character that eventually I was like, okay, fine, we can hang out with Oak. But I did miss that it was not quite as Ren focused in this book. I mean, she's still like a primary character, she's just not our POV character. I love this world. I think it's so interesting, so dynamic. I feel like Holly Black has done such a brilliant job creating it, and it was a delight to finish the series up. Then I read a little novella. I read the Powerless novella called Powerful, which follows, so in the Powerless series, we're following Peyton, and this little novella followed Peyton's best friend, Adina, and it follows like Adina during the same time Powerless takes place, like their concurrent narratives. I'm normally not someone who reads novellas, like the bonus novellas that come out in a series, unless I'm like really strongly attached. But for some reason I decided to pick this up, and I kind of was like fine with it. I don't know if anything in this series is going to become important in the 3rd book. It kind of seems like it might. As of now, I haven't read the 3rd book yet. As of now, I don't think this is a must read. I had a good time. I think Adina is like a lovely character. We have like a little romance that we follow for her, and it was like a fun, nice little time. But it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to read, if that makes sense. Then I read another romance. I read The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I have been a Christina Lauren fan for such a long time. They have just been writing romances for like ages. And I feel like some of my first romances I really got into as an adult were Christina Lauren romances. And they are just like so fun, and they always come up with the most interesting concepts. I've been loving so many of their books lately. I just love their books in general. This book was such an interesting idea, and such a, I felt like it was really well executed, and I really enjoyed it. We're following this woman named Anna Green, and Anna Green is like an artist, but like art is not paying the bills right now, so she's also doing like a collection of odd jobs. But Anna, when she was in college, married this boy named West. And West, they like literally married after knowing each other like quite briefly, just so they could get into the family housing, because family housing I think was like more affordable and like a better location and whatever. So they wind up getting married, and at the end of their lease when they were in college, Anna thought they got divorced. Anna thought they were not married anymore, but West shows up at her doorstep and is like, hey, we're still married actually, and I need you to pretend to be my wife when I go to this wedding. And it turns out West is the heir to this like grocery store franchise that makes him like a multi-million, maybe billionaire we love. And so this wedding is like the wedding of the year. It's taking place on this like private island. Everyone rich and famous and cool is going there. And so she's having to spend a week on this private island with his family and pretend that she has been his wife for the past like 5 years, and kind of live like a completely fake life, because he's told his family stories about her that are very much not true. And it like actually has like some interesting things to say about like class and privilege, as well as being just like, what a fun time. Private island, fake marriage sort of thing. I loved it. I loved the chemistry between the two main characters too. Like, just because the premise was so bonkers, I feel like sometimes you lose the chemistry, and I didn't feel like that was true in this one. Felt like it was a delight. Then I ended my month with a couple thrillers. First of all, I read One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. This book was not what I was expecting. I have read not all, but a lot of Ruth Ware's books, and she actually writes like quite a wide spectrum, I would say, of books that all fit within the thriller category. And I would say this one is definitely one of those books that is much less about like the mystery and like figuring out what's happening, and more of like a survival story is what it really turns into for the most part. There are definitely some like twists and turns and some like mysteries and some unexpected ways the plot moves, but like overall I would say it's a survival story. We're following this couple, and they are on this island. Well, they don't start on an island. They are this couple, and the guy is a like struggling actor, and he convinces his girlfriend of a couple years that they should go on this reality show. It's this reality show that is going to be like sort of like Love Island meets Survivor is how it's like pitched to them, in which they'll be like coupled up and staying on this like luxury resort, but there'll be like challenges and things that will like eliminate people, and then like you can get recoupled up and things like that. Get to this island, and it becomes clear very quickly that like this production is not quite as together as it had been pitched to them. Like, there's a lot of things that are not up to snuff, not up to the standards that they should be for a production. And pretty quickly after they get to the island, a storm blows in, and it does cause some problems. And we also have the added element of all of these people have been like selected to be on reality TV, so we have like a lot of like characters. Like, the other people that are on the island with them are like really strong personalities, some lovely, some not so lovely, and so they're also dealing with those dynamics. So it's not just like a survival against the elements sort of story. There is like a large aspect of these like interpersonal conflicts and relationships that is happening, but it's almost got like a Lord of the Flies sort of feel in terms of that, I would say. It was just like not what I was expecting, but still like a good read. Still a good time. Then the last thing I finished was another thriller. I read the most recent Riley Sager. I have read every single Riley Sager. This one, the opposite of the Ruth Ware I just read, this one felt to me so much more like a mystery. Like, honestly, there are not very many points in the story where the main character's life is in risk at all. And I feel like for a thriller to be like a true thriller, you do have to have that sense of like stakes, where if like the person doesn't figure out this mystery, they're dead, you know? And that just didn't happen in this one. We're following this man named Ethan, who has just moved home to his like the childhood home he grew up in. He's 40 years old. His parents are like retiring to like Florida, and so he is moving in to his house to eventually sell it probably. And he's like a school teacher. It's the summer, so like he doesn't have to go to work, which is lovely for the plot. And he's moving back into this neighborhood, and the neighborhood is like really contains mostly the same families that were there when he was a kid. A lot of the same parents that were there when he was a kid, and then some of the kids that he grew up with have now moved into their parents' homes. So it's kind of like a mix of generations, but like he knows the like families of most of the people that live on this little cul-de-sac. But what winds up happening when he moves back in to this house is it like stirs up a lot of stuff from his past, because when he was 10 years old, I believe 10 or 11, he was sleeping in a tent in his backyard with his best friend, which they did every single Friday night, when his best friend went missing. He woke up, there was a giant slash cut in his tent, and he woke up and his best friend was gone, and no one has ever found out what happened to him. Like, there has been no body, there has been no evidence of what happened to his best friend. And so it's stirring up a lot of stuff around that. Also, he like is having a lot of like nightmares and like night terrors around this. And yeah, he decides he's gonna figure out what happened to his bestie when he was 10. And there's also like a ghost element that happens. It very much gives the vibes of Stranger Things in terms of like the heavy weight on like childhood nostalgia and what it was like to grow up in a kid like grow up as a kid like pre-internet, and like summers spent that way. And also there is this like institute, I think it's called the Institute, that is like a mile away through the forest behind their house, that it like gives culty vibes, that kind of gives the like Compound and Stranger Things vibes. I do feel like they have similar vibes in terms of that. There's also like a big ghost element in which he thinks he's being haunted. So there's also like some spooky ooky vibes. I don't know, it very much gives like 90s nostalgia, Goosebumps sort of vibes. That's what I read in the month of July. That was a very quick recap. Just giving you the highlights and the lowlights. Will this month be better? I will make a prediction, yes. I've already finished a book, and I'm reading like 4 others that I'm loving. I'm loving all 4 of them. I feel like all 4 books that I'm reading currently have 5-star potential. What? That's crazy. 4 books at one time and they all have 5-star potential? That is bananas. Okay. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.